Welcome to the secret of fear. Before a single name is spoken, before a single date is given, you must understand the nature of the air in a place like this. It is not the horror of a sudden shock, but the slow, chilling dread of something that has been wrong for a very, very long time. This is a story about the Addingtons, but it is not their story alone. It is about the weight a name can carry, and the darkness that can gather in the corners of a family legacy, waiting. What we uncover tonight suggests that the horror of Addington Manor was never an accident. It was a design. And that design is now reaching its final, terrifying stage. The testimony you are about to encounter has been assembled from fragments, from diaries that were meant to be burned, from government files stamped with warnings that outlasted the men who wrote them, from the accounts of people who later vanished. Some of what I will share with you has been deliberately suppressed by authorities who believed the public could not handle the implications. Others would dismiss it as superstition. But the pattern that emerges is too precise, too consistent across centuries, to be anything but a dreadful truth. For those of a sensitive disposition, consider this your only warning. The horrors of Addington Manor are not merely physical. They are existential. They challenge our understanding of reality itself, suggesting that beneath the thin veneer of our world lies something vast and incomprehensible, something that has used generations of a single family as its doorway. You have been warned. Our story begins in 1842, with a man who saw not a cursed property, but an opportunity. Edward Addington was a businessman of unrelenting ambition, a man who built his fortune in coal and steel on the broken backs of labourers. He purchased the sprawling estate in the misty highlands of northern England from the disgraced Blackwood family for a suspiciously low price. Local rumours swirled about the land being cursed, but Edward dismissed them as provincial nonsense. He was a man of industry, of progress. He did not believe in curses. But the land remembered what he chose to forget. And it was waiting for him. The region was ancient, steeped in a history that predated written record. Neolithic stone circles dotted the moors, burial mounds lay in the shadow of the estate. Archaeologists would later speculate that the site was chosen by pre-Celtic peoples because of powerful geomagnetic anomalies, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. Edward saw only resources to be exploited. His mines delved deeper than any others, and his miners sometimes spoke of strange, unclassifiable fossils found in the deepest tunnels, fossils that had a habit of disappearing once reported. Edward's public face was one of ruthless industrial progress, but in private, he nurtured a fascination with older, darker forms of power. Despite his disdain for superstition, he maintained an extensive private library of occult texts and employed tutors in ancient, forgotten languages. Visitors to his London home reported strange gatherings, attended by powerful men who would leave looking strangely diminished, as if something vital had been drained from them. When he moved his young wife, Eleanor, and their 5 children into the manor, he commissioned extensive renovations. But the local workers refused to set foot on the property. So, Edward brought in immigrants, desperate men who didn't understand the warnings whispered in the local taverns. From the very beginning, they reported things. Rhythmic tapping in the walls that followed a pattern. Sudden, brutal cold spots that formed frost on their tools. And most of all, the pervasive, unshakable feeling of being watched, especially in the East Wing. What they were building was not just a house. They were assembling a cage for something they could not comprehend. 3 workers died. A stonemason named Gregory fell from a scaffold, his face frozen in terror at something only he could see inside the room. A carpenter, Thomas, drowned in the estate's lake, a powerful swimmer found floating with his eyes turned a solid, bleached white. A young apprentice, William, was found hanging in the cellar from a beam 15 feet high, with no knot in the rope, as if the loop had been woven directly from the air around his neck. The local authorities, heavily influenced by Edward's donations, ruled them all tragic accidents. Construction continued. Edward poured money into the project, doubling, then tripling the workers' bonuses. Within 6 months, Addington Manor stood complete, a monument to Victorian opulence and questionable taste. The exterior was a harmonious Gothic revival, but the interior was a disorienting blend of styles that reflected Edward's obsessions. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings painted with star charts depicting unknown celestial bodies. Persian carpets covered floors with shifting, unsettling patterns. The library housed a collection of books bound in materials that defied identification, written in languages with no known speakers. Yet, for all its grandeur, the atmosphere was undeniably oppressive. Guests invited to the housewarming in December of 1842 rarely stayed the night. Those who did reported troubled sleep and disturbing dreams. Lady Harrington, a friend of Eleanor's, wrote in her diary, "There is something unwholesome about the air in that house. It feels thick in one's lungs, as if it carries some invisible contamination. I shall not accept another invitation. Friendship be damned." Eleanor Addington, once vibrant and sociable, began to change. She grew withdrawn, her gaze distant. She dismissed her longtime lady's maid, accusing her of spying. She refused food prepared by the staff, surviving on tea and dry toast she made herself. She spoke of hearing children's laughter in empty halls and seeing figures dart past doorways. Most alarming was her new habit of stopping mid-sentence, tilting her head as if listening to a voice only she could hear, then whispering a response to the empty air. Edward dismissed it as female hysteria. "The house is settling," he would say. But Eleanor knew better. She began to keep a journal. April 18, 1843. I found William, our youngest, speaking to the wall in the east wing again. When I asked who he was talking to, he said, "The sad lady who lives inside. Edward says it's childish fancy." But William described her in such detail, the lace collar, the pearl buttons, the dark stain spreading across her abdomen. No child could invent such specifics. He said the lady told him she had lived in the house long ago, and that the master heard her because of the baby. When I asked if she meant Edward, William looked confused. "No, mother," he said. "She said it was before the fire. There has been no fire at Addington Manor in living memory. The entries grew more disturbed. She wrote of a dark figure standing at the foot of her bed, of a woman weeping in the locked east wing, of a whisper that told her, "He will hollow you out, too." Her handwriting, once elegant, became erratic, the pen sometimes tearing through the paper. The children, too, were changing. Young William developed a stutter. Margaret was caught threatening a governess with a knife, saying, "They told me to open you up and see what's inside," with no memory of the event afterward. The twins, Alexander and Victoria, invented a game called the Hollow People, making precise cutting motions in the air before each other's bodies, moving with a synchronicity that was deeply unnatural. They were not just living in a haunted house. They were being prepared. Their innocence was the key being turned in a lock none of them could see. Edward, meanwhile, became a ghost in his own home. He spent days locked in the east wing, emerging gaunt and pale, but with a feverish energy. Servants found him standing motionless, staring at blank walls, mumbling in languages none of them recognized. Eleanor's final, coherent journal entry is dated November 13, 1843. "I can bear it no longer. The sounds from behind the walls have become unbearable. Not just weeping now, but screams that slash through my dreams. Edward has forbidden us from the East Wing's 3rd floor. But he himself spends hours there, returning with a look of terrible exaltation that chills my blood. Tonight, while he is away, I shall uncover what secret he guards so possessively. May God forgive my trespass. Asterisk. What she discovered would shatter the family. Using a stolen key, she found the third floor had been transformed into a single, vast chamber. The geometry of the room was wrong, corners that weren't 90 degrees, a ceiling that seemed to recede into infinity. The floor was a massive mosaic of thousands of tiles, stone, metal, and unidentifiable materials, forming a pulsating geometric pattern. At its center was a circular depression. Behind a hidden wall, she found a small chamber. On a pedestal lay a book, ancient beyond reckoning, its cover made of a material she dared not contemplate. Its pages were filled with scripts in dead languages and illustrations of ritual sacrifice. The images showed human figures arranged around a circular depression identical to the one in the next room, their chests open to reveal not organs, but vast, starry voids. The final pages contained a list of names spanning centuries. The last entry was fresh ink, asterisk Edward Addington. December the 21st, 1843. Asterisk. She had found it. His fortune wasn't built on industry alone, but on forbidden pacts. The manor was not a home, it was a sigil, a beacon. The deaths during construction were not accidents, they were sacrifices, their life energy used to power a terrible mechanism. When Edward found her, his rage was otherworldly. A housemaid who witnessed the confrontation later testified that his face seemed to ripple, asterisk like something was moving under the skin. And his eyes, they weren't human eyes no more. They were like windows opening onto somewhere else, somewhere huge and cold and hungry. Asterisk. Eleanor's scream was cut short, transforming into something that should not have been possible for a human throat to produce. The next morning, Edward announced she had suffered a nervous collapse and had been sent to a Swiss sanatorium. Letters in a shaky imitation of her handwriting arrived periodically. She was never seen again. The household ledger shows a delivery of quicklime to the East Wing the day after her disappearance. Asterisk asterisk the official story was a lie. But the truth was far more terrifying. Eleanor Addington hadn't just been silenced. She had been consumed. Asterisk asterisk. In the months that followed, the darkness tightened its grip. Edward dismissed most of the staff, isolating his children. A doctor, James Morrison, was a frequent visitor. Local gossip said he developed a laudanum addiction and gambling debts shortly before Edward retained him. Strange lights were seen over the manor. Chanting in no known language echoed across the moors. Livestock were found drained of blood. And 7 children from nearby villages vanished without a trace. The eldest Addington child, Charles, began a hidden journal. Asterisk father has altered. His eyes seem different, deeper, with a strange gleam. He spends endless hours in the East Wing, and when he emerges, he often doesn't recognize us. Last week, he called me by a name I've never heard. Asterisk. By spring, the remaining children were deeply disturbed. William mutilated small animals. Margaret spoke in languages she'd never learned. Charles, planning an escape, wrote, asterisk I dread what father is becoming. Yesterday, I saw him in the garden at dawn, burying something wrapped in bloody sheets. I have not seen Margaret since the prior afternoon. Asterisk. He never escaped. On May 17, 1844, a fire consumed the East Wing. They found Edward in the garden, watching the inferno with an expression of rapturous fulfillment. In the cellar, the bodies of all 5 Addington children were discovered, arranged in a precise geometric pattern around a stone altar. They had not died in the fire. They had been ritually sacrificed. Edward was committed to Bedlam, where he spent his days in catatonic silence, except during certain astronomical alignments, when he would frantically draw complex symbols, often in his own blood. The story should have ended there. But it was only the beginning. In 1850, a distant cousin, James Addington, a respected scholar, claimed the property and rebuilt the manor exactly to its original plans. Within months, he was exhibiting the same obsessive behaviors. His wife documented the change. James remained 3 days in the East Wing. When he emerged, he looked younger, more vital. But his eyes, they seemed to reflect light like a cat's. He smiled and said, "I was never absent, my dear. I've been here all along, watching you sleep." The pattern repeated. Generation after generation, an Addington would return, rebuild, and be consumed. With each cycle, local children would disappear. Parish records from the nearby village of Thornfield show 23 children vanished between 1850 and 1870 when the Addingtons were in residence. This was not a curse. It was a harvest. And the Addington family were the farmers, tending a crop of suffering they themselves would ultimately provide. By 1901, the property passed to Richard Addington, a London physician. He approached it with scientific skepticism, determined to debunk the curse. He installed electric lighting, hired scientists. For 6 months, he documented everything. Then, his letters turned dark. There is something here that defies scientific explanation. I've seen it moving through the walls. The children hear it, too. His final letter held the dreadful revelation. The East Wing. I've discovered why. The original foundations remain. Edward wasn't the first. The Blackwoods before him, and God knows how many others. They all found it. The chamber beneath. It's older than England. The symbols. I recognize them. They speak to something primitive in my brain. God help me. I understand now what must be done. What has always been done. 3 days later, his wife and children were found dead in their beds, faces frozen in terror. Richard was in the cellar, his body contorted impossibly, surrounded by symbols drawn in blood and ash. The manor was abandoned, but trespassers kept coming. Many never came out. In 1923, a Cambridge research team entered. Only one graduate student, Thomas Piper, returned alive. His journals, written in an asylum, provide the clearest picture. The cellar symbols are not static. They shift when unobserved. Professor Hartley believed they represent a form of non-Euclidean mathematics equations for dimensional transit. The manor is a machine. A door. Hartley opened it. I saw only a glimpse as I fled. The others, their screams expressed not pain, but rapture. During World War II, a secret British intelligence unit, the Extraordinary Threats Division, occupied the manor. Colonel James Blackwood reported, whatever exists here responds to human intention and emotion. The symbols function as a programming language, allowing limited control at grave psychological risk. Their experiments were disastrous. Test subjects exhibited rapid personality decay. Researchers encountered doppelgangers. Time moved at different speeds. One man entered the East Wing for 20 minutes and emerged 3 days later, having written 200 pages of a journal he didn't remember, filled with the phrase, they are watching from behind the walls. By 1944, casualties were too high. Blackwood sealed the cellar with concrete and recommended the manor be destroyed. What we have contained is not defeated, he wrote. It is merely imprisoned. There will always be those drawn to this place, those who hear the whispers. God help us if they succeed where we failed. His recommendation was ignored. The government didn't destroy it because they couldn't. The best they could do was contain it. But the seal, like all things, is beginning to fail. The property was monitored until budget cuts ended, even that in 1976. For 20 years, it was left to rot. Then, in 1995, American tech mogul Victor Reynolds bought it. Publicly, he wanted a paranormal research center. Privately, he was a member of the Morphic Resonance Society, which believed the manor was an alpha site, a place where thought and reality blurred. His team brought cutting-edge technology. For 6 months, they documented information bleed data appearing on their computers without input, including a recurring phrase, *the door swings both ways. They found the ETD's concrete seal had cracked. Their physicist, Dr. Eleanor Chen, analyzed particles from the chamber. They exhibit macroscopic quantum superposition. They become what we expect them to be. This suggests that whatever lies beyond exists in a reality where thought directly manipulates matter. Drones sent into the expanded chamber showed a vast, non-Euclidean space, its walls covered in the same shifting symbols, now moving with purpose. Reynolds noted, we are being observed as much as we are observing. The entities are learning from us. Our research may be serving their purposes. Despite this, he pushed forward. On October 31, 1996, Samhain, they conducted a controlled communion. Neurologist Dr. Marcus Wayland was connected to a brain-computer interface. The emergency recording captures his voice. It's beautiful. Geometry impossible in our space. Colors that shouldn't exist. Entities are here. They're curious. Oh, God. They recognize me. They're calling me by name, but not my current name. They're calling me Addington. He began to convulse. As they rushed to disconnect him, he spoke in a chorus of voices. We have always been here. Before your kind crawled from the oceans. We have waited, and you have served. Generation after generation, you have opened the way. Addington, Blackwood, Reynolds. Names change, but blood remembers. The door swings both ways, and now we return the favor. We come through. The recording ends with screams and an explosion. The East Wing was obliterated. The team was dead. Dr. Wayland's body was found intact, but empty, every organ removed with surgical precision, yet his skin was unbroken. The site was sealed again, designated a restricted zone for chemical contamination. But the incident in 1996 wasn't a failure. It was a successful test. The entities learned how to cross over using a human host. And now, they may not need an invitation anymore. For nearly 2 decades, quiet. Then, in 2014, disturbances began. Unexplained seismic activity. Unidentifiable compounds in the groundwater. Electronic devices failing within a 5-mile radius. In 2015, a containment team was dispatched. Their report is classified, but satellite imagery shows a massive new concrete structure over the East Wing. Power consumption indicates a high-capacity containment system is running, constantly. Leaked 2018 documents suggest the entity is no longer fully contained. Reports of missing time and impossible geometries in nearby buildings are rising exponentially. Most concerning are the children. Hospital staff have documented unusual birthmarks on children born near the manor since 2016, patterns that match the cellar symbols. Then, last year, a routine DNA analysis revealed the most chilling development yet. Genetic markers associated with the Addington family have appeared in over 60% of children born within 20 miles of the manor since 2017, regardless of their parents' ancestry. We are no longer looking at a haunted house story. We are witnessing the emergence of a new species, or perhaps the awakening of a very old one, wearing human skin. The pattern is clear. Each generation of Addingtons discovered the gateway, tried to control it, and was consumed. Now, an entire community of genetic Addingtons is reaching maturity, drawn to the locus by forces they cannot understand. Government monitors report escalating electromagnetic fluctuations. Night vision shows the containment concrete becoming briefly translucent, revealing vast movement beneath. Locals report the same dream, a rebuilt manor, grander than before, and a whisper, "Come home." The Addington Chronicle is a warning about doors that should never be opened. The gateway has consumed its caretakers. Now, it is preparing for its final purpose. If the pattern holds, what happens when this new cohort comes of age? What ceremony might they perform, knowingly or not? What will finally emerge when the veil is torn for good? For those considering a visit, the property remains strictly off-limits. The official story is chemical contamination. Respect it. Those who breach the perimeter are detained if they return at all. To residents of the area, especially those with children born since 2016, medical authorities recommend psychological evaluations and immediate reporting of any unusual dreams or compulsions involving geometric patterns or whispers. This story is a chilling reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Behind the grand facade, behind the curtain of our reality, something has always existed, patient, ancient, and hungry. And if history is any guide, it is closer to emerging than ever before. Sleep well. And remember, if you dream of a manor on the moors, do not enter. Some invitations, once accepted, can never be rescinded. This has been The Secret of Fear. Until next time, keep the lights on. What looks back from the dark might just recognize you.